Hello and welcome back. Seems like I just left y'all. That's probably because I just left y'all. Well, I'm glad you're back. We'll let people pile in. I'm really excited to have Sean on. He is my friend. We've been chatting forever. I've been on his show once, long time ago. It's been long overdue for me to have Sean Martin, attorney extraordinaire, host of Potentially Criminal YouTube channel, which is phenomenal. He's got a great community over there. It's funny. I'll go over in his chat and it's like I don't even exist. I'll pop in other people's chats. They're like, "Oh, hey, what's up, DD?" I go into Sean's crickets. I'm like, I'll chat some shit. People are like, "Who's this guy and what's he all about?" So I'm really glad to have him over here, as you're about to find out in very short order. Very bright guy, very witty guy, and just an all around awesome human being. Let's bring him on. What is up, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Bob.
Dude, long time coming.
Coming.
So for my folks that are not familiar with you, why don't you just give like a little thumbnail bio of what you're all about?
Sure. So my name's Sean. I'm also known as Potentially Criminal. I am an attorney over in the Cleveland area. I'm primarily do stuff over in the eastern suburbs of Cleveland. A lot of people are like, does that mean you live in East Cleveland? I'm like, no. I wouldn't be able to, I couldn't live there. There'd be too many bullet holes in the house. But no, I'm over in the eastern suburbs of Cleveland. I do obviously a lot of criminal work. I mean, if I could just do that only, I would love it because it'd be so much better. But I do all the other stuff along the way. It's, I don't know what you guys call it there, general practitioner, but I focus on criminal defense.
Got to do it, man. You got to do it.
You got to do the divorces, got to do the custodies.
Got to do it, man. It's like, it was the same with us. It's like, is like, kind of big as our criminal practice was. I mean, you know how it is, man. There's just you don't get $350,000 retainers rolling into your door.
I wish often,
man. Yeah. So it's the grind. We got to take all the shit, all the DUIs, all the little cases.
I don't mind the DUIs and little cases. Just like you walk in the DR court though, and I'm just like,
oh, dude, like those and the divorce, the family law stuff in general is.
Yeah.
Oh, so brutal. It's
that's where the money's made.
Absolutely. If you're good at billing, like that is an absolute key. Like Alice and I were habitually terrible at like bill. Like people would be getting free phone calls, and I'd be like, "All right, you know why they keep calling us? Because we're not billing them for it. They'll stop calling us if we start billing them for it." So it's like it's like you're running your own practice, man. It's like people don't understand, like that's two separate jobs entirely. Running a business and then being a lawyer are two completely different things. So, when did you start your YouTube channel? And it's called Potentially Criminal.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I started it in, I did like 2 videos in 2019. I was like, I just kind of curious to see how it is. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then, watching the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and just seeing other people do, the whole sitting in a car talking thing, and people in COVID were like, oh, this is interesting. I'm like, I could do that too. Like, how hard can this be? I mean, it's very much, it's something funny. If you ever watched old Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson's like, how hard could it be? And that's really, kind of the mindset I had with this. And I remember, my dad has been that same way. Like he'd watch, the New Yankee Workshop as like a woodworking show on PBS, and he's like,
Yep.
"Yeah, I could do that." And he's like, "That looks like fun." Got a table saw and started making all kinds of cool crap. So just trying to do it. And I will say, my lovely muse, the future Mrs. Martin 2.0, really kept on telling me like, get off your butt and take care of it and try it. And
Yeah.
at the time I had just tore my patella tendon, so I was kind of laid up anyway in 2021. So I started, getting ready, and then finally started doing it really at the beginning of 2022, and it's been kind of upwards from there. I'm really like, I wouldn't believe where I'm at right now doing this. It's been so much fun.
It's so fun, man. It's
Yeah.
like I started the podcast because unlike you, my wife
Mhm.
let me leave practicing,
Mhm.
which was huge. I was like, I'm 23 years in.
Mhm.
It's like like I'll always do a trial, but I don't want to
Mhm.
do the rest of it. Like
Yeah.
I just got burnt out on it, man. And it's like, so I started the podcast and I was like a
Mhm.
year and a half into the podcast, and I'm like, I really need to look at the YouTube thing, but it was intimidating. You don't know what you're gonna do. Am I gonna be able to sit there and fill time just yapping? Which obviously I can.
Yes.
Like I'm like people, I do it too much, I talk too much. So it's like
Yeah.
that is not my problem. I figured out in very short order that I could definitely eat up some time by yapping. So and like you, man, I really love it. It's a lot of fun. We've built
Mhm.
an amazing community, as I know that you
Yeah.
guys have as well. And you get your usual cast of characters in there. You always see
Mhm.
the same. It's like hanging with your buddies, man.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing. Now, I've happened upon your channel and like walked into you building models, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me about that. Is like, do you run that? Like, is it kind of a different show? Or
No, actually, it's something I like doing. I mean, like, speaking of that, hmm, I
you gonna
I'm
show us a
missing part of
model?
the one. Missing part of the one I'm working on right now, but that's not good. I hope I didn't run it over in my chair. Oh, there it is. But
Is
yeah,
that
I
like that's like if you lose one piece of a jigsaw puzzle? It's like
kind of. Well, I mean, like if you lose the fuselage to an airplane, you kind of have a big problem there.
that's bad.
So
That's bad. That
yeah,
seems
that's
like a
bad.
major part. I don't know shit
So
about planes, but
yeah,
usually like losing the fuselage sounds like very,
yeah.
very bad.
Yeah, it's like losing the frame of your car. No, I just do those for fun. I used to do them all the time as a kid, and my biggest problem back then was I didn't have patience. The other big problem was, I'm just gonna be 40 in August. Going back 30 years, like owning a spray gun and an air gun and all that stuff, that was like a couple $100 worth of stuff,
Yeah.
and the tips and techniques were kind of like dark arts, and nobody really shared them. There wasn't a lot of information to get to them. So
Yeah.
like I made models, and you had fingerprints that like of your glue and all over it, and they looked like garbage. And
Right.
as I've gotten older, I've been able to chill out and I can relax and do it. And people, they like to sit there and watch. Every once in a while, I'm kind of stuck on something and they think that's hilarious, or I put it together wrong and I have to take it apart. But if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna be sitting here at my desk. I got my lights and all the stuff, and it's the one place I can keep stuff that's out of the way. So yeah, I
Yeah.
figured may
Man,
as well hang out with people.
so I modeled when I was young,
Hmm.
and much like you, like I didn't have the patience for it. So I'd get
Hmm.
like super, super irritated when I was doing it because like as you'll
Hmm.
attest, many pieces of a model are very, very small. So it
Yes.
really does take some patience. You can't be like you have to breathe. Like I can see how it can be
Hmm.
like in an older age, how it could be very, very relaxing though. I could see how it would like completely be the other side of the coin as to where it was. I was like
Hmm.
a hyper kid, man. It's like I
Mm.
like me sitting still because it's really like performing surgery. I mean, you have to have a steady hand when you're placing these like intricate small pieces,
Hmm.
especially when you're like in a packed in area. It's got to be really challenging. So
Hmm.
that's a cool thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that, man. So are you full-time practicing and because I mean you like on
Yeah.
average, how many lives a week do you say you do?
I probably do about 5 or 6 a week, but
Me
they're
too.
always generally in the after, like, the evening time. So, and
Yeah.
that's just, I mean, if I could do more. And last year, this was really great. And if I could do that again this year, maybe I can like start slowing down out there and doing stuff. I don't think I'd
Yeah.
ever quit because I can't like not do anything.
Yeah.
Like I like going like, because I tell this to people because I know there's like some law students in my chat and I tell them this, like, you have to be able to know, like, even if you're going to be a transactional attorney, you have to be able to know how to walk into court and like have some basic idea of what you're doing, but also just, I mean, I would take, at the very least, yeah, I'd take it if somebody paid me enough, but also just there's enough courts around me because I live, the suburbs of Cleveland. There's enough places where, hey, will you take an appointed case? Sure. Like people, the idea that people are entitled and need,
Yeah.
adequate legal representation, I think is very important.
So do I. I do.
And
And it's
yeah.
you know what? It's an honorable thing that you do that too,
Mhm.
because it's like it's one of the biggest problems with our system. I
Yeah.
mean, you can watch what people with money can do in a court, in a criminal case in
Mhm.
particular, and then when you look at the other side of it, with the people that you're talking about, those
Mhm.
that are without, and it's never to cast shade on public defenders. My father, I've said it many times, is
Mhm.
an amazing attorney who was a PD for 15 years. So, the
Mhm.
problem with them is always allocation of time. They just don't have the time to commit to your case. It's
And
always the advantage that you get with private counsel.
well, the other thing is too is the money. That's the biggest thing ultimately.
Yep. Yep.
So,
100%.
um, yeah, and I mean, I think we see that now with a couple like Karen Reed's probably one of the biggest cases right now.
Yeah. That's
I
what
mean, if she
that's
couldn't,
specifically what I was talking about. If she
yeah,
like that case is not that case if she doesn't have money.
yeah,
I mean,
she'd
like,
let out already.
oh, dude, it's insane. I mean, I think Jackson said that collectively that team, I mean, especially with the addition of Les, like I can't even imagine what his fees are, because he's
Oh,
from like just a powerhouse New York firm, primarily
mhm.
civil litigation. But I mean, that guy,
He's appellate litigation, which is, and I've explained this to people. You think it's expensive hiring an attorney? Hire somebody to do an appeal.
dude, for
That's
real,
yeah. Like, and
really,
that's the thing. Like, I take appeals, and I've done probably over 100 appeals at this point in my career. Like, definitely over 100. But the amount of them that have been like privately retained has been like 6 or 7.
yeah,
And
because
but
it's
they
really
pay,
expensive.
yeah, but they paid out because yeah, it's and he's I've been very impressed with him.
Yeah.
He's been doing a great job for Kieran Reed, actually.
Me too. I'm a big fan of him in court. I like his style. I like he's just got, and it's like it stuns people. Like I just figured out that he was 67 years old, man.
Huh.
I'm like, holy shit. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, when you see him up close, he looks older, but
Hmm.
from afar, he comes off as a much younger guy. But yeah, I mean, that team. I mean, like, I think Jackson said something that would be like in the neighborhood of like $2 million, like all in,
Hmm.
going through a second trial. So they're going pro bono on this one. But, I mean, but that's just what we're saying. Like that the concept of the average person being able to pony up that type of money for a
Hmm.
defense. And then you look at kind of how disproportionately who gets arrested and you see what the problem is with the system. So yeah, no, I mean that's noble. I mean, Alice and I did a lot of pro bono stuff because it's like we're
No.
in kind
Well,
of bigger
well,
counties.
no, I'm not doing pro bono. You get appointed by the court, and you still in Ohio, you can bill through the public defender's office. So you're
Yeah.
not making squat, but it's still better than nothing. But
See,
yeah.
our counties are too big. Like
Oh.
so like all of our counties
Mm,
have a public defender's office attached
mm.
to it. So like the ability to be
Not
able to
here in
get
Ohio.
yeah, like and when we were first in Philly, when we started our practice out in
Mm,
Philadelphia, oddly enough, we could get on the list over there. So when
mhm,
we first started practicing, we got a bunch of appointed cases, yeah, we did get paid, obviously. But no, I mean, we did our fair share of pro bono stuff.
mhm.
Some of it not going in thinking that it was pro bono. It just ended up being pro bono because it's one
That
of those
happens.
things where you're like,
Yeah, just
the
like, hey,
guy's
can you do me a favor?
right. Or I'll get you 500 on a $7,500 retainer up front. We're like, we're buying into the sob story. We want to help a person. We enter our appearance, and
Yeah.
then a year in, and I'm chasing the guy for money, and the guy's like, oh, and then trials bearing down. I mean, what are you gonna do? It's like I
I'm t-
got yeah. So
that
it's
happens all the time, and it's
all the
funny
time.
because well, and I know you've been doing this for a while, but I mean, when I'm talking like there's old timers that they're like, there was this judge and he's a retired judge now, but he used to say out in this area, he'd say, sounds like you would just tell the judge, Your Honor, there's a rule 1 violation. And the judge was like, oh, I understand rule 1. Rule 1's get paid.
Yeah, exactly. And
So,
it's
and you
like,
tell it and he would continue things out for you.
right. And people like, so kind of the key word
Mm.
here is like, if you're not getting paid, you're never supposed to plead it in your motion to withdraw, but like you'll
Mhm.
bring up, you're like, oh, we have a critical witness that's missing. Mr. Green's not here. And
Yeah.
all the judges know what it means. Especially like if it's early on in the case, the judge isn't going to give you any shit about
Yeah.
dumping the case. If you're on the doorsteps of the courthouse for trial, the judge is gonna be like, you know what, dude? You had a long time to pull out of this thing, and now I'm not letting you do it because you waited too damn long, and I'm
Yeah.
not delaying trial by another year because you waited too long to withdraw. Yeah, so I mean, it happens, but you know what? I mean, it's all part of the gig. It's
It's
like
part of
I
the
tell people
experience.
all the time. I'm like, if we wanted to be rich, we would have gotten into civil litigation
If I wanted to be rich, I'd have been an engineer or a
or a
doctor.
dentist. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'll tell you, one of my when was practicing and I was practicing out in Toledo, that's where I first started, way out in the other end of Ohio. I ended up,
The
I have a
Zips.
client. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's Akron. Akron's the Zips.
Oh, the
Toledo's the
Akron Zips.
Rockets.
You
Um,
get Toledo Rock. What did it? Was it always the Rockets?
yes.
Was. Huh.
Yeah.
Who's the Mud Hens? Is that
That's
Delaware?
the baseball team for the
Oh,
Tigers.
okay. All right. All right. All right. I knew there was a Toledo Mud Hens.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm not
So,
crazy.
no. Thank you, sweetheart, for gifting the subs.
Yes, you're awesome. We appreciate you so much. And welcome. Welcome to the family. What we do over here is we say, "Ah, family hug." We give you a family hug when you come in. We definitely consider our crew fam. So, all right. What like
Yeah.
we all know about
Hmm.
Reed. I know
Yeah.
you dipped your toes into what's up, T? Criminalities in the house. Hey, I know you dipped
Hi,
your
criminality.
toes
I've
into.
seen, I've watched your stuff before.
She's
It's
great.
out there. Yeah.
Reese is amazing. She's got a
Mhm.
great channel too. Um, so I know you were taking peeks at Richard Allen's case, but like,
Yeah.
what are the cases that are most piquing your interest at this point in time?
I mean, there's a couple of things out there. I think Courtney Clenny is going to be very interesting when that actually gets going. One of the biggest ones, though, there was, I was waiting for it to happen, and it seems like it's going to get drug out a bit. Is the Pike County murders? I don't know if you guys ever
Yes,
you heard about that. So
yes.
there's the dad. He's the last of the Mohicans right now. He looks like he's going to trial, and the prosecution screwed up so bad the judge said, "No, the death penalty's off the table now." So,
Wow.
yeah, and it's funny because the mom and one of the sons already pled out, and they had for the other brother, he ended up pleading out, and they went through everything. We watched, that whole hearing, which was very interesting. The judge was very phenomenal in that he looked at the victims and he was like, "You each have 10 minutes, make it count."
Wow.
And he did a very good job governing his courtroom. But I'm looking forward to that one. That one's going to be pretty interesting.
Dude, that
There's
is an
another.
insane case. I like in
Yes.
first place I ever heard of it. I think they did there was that Pike County Massacre podcast.
Hmm.
I kind of heard the
Yeah.
whole story, and then I was so piqued by that. I think they did a documentary on it. Dude, what a brutal case, man.
Yeah.
Just
And then,
talk
yeah,
about family law, right?
yeah, it is. And it's all because of like a custody
I
dispute.
know. It's
And
crazy.
that's the thing. Like, family law is dangerous, man. Like, you hear about like attorneys getting shot, or when
Yes.
I was up in Toledo, an attorney in Michigan got like car bombed. And it's like, you know why and I was like, immediately, I'm like, that's got to be a family law attorney.
Yeah.
And I was right. It's
Dude,
never
it's way
criminal
more
attorneys getting
prevalent in
attacked.
criminal cases.
Yeah.
I mean, like lawyers getting shot. I mean, most of the time because your client is in prison, So that
Mhm.
helps with not getting shot. But like all jokes aside, the
Mhm.
reality is that for whatever reason, because you're really dealing with people at their lowest point in terms of
Mhm.
emotions, when you're
Yeah.
dealing with like family law shit. And when you bring the kids into it and you just and
Mhm.
Sean, I'm sure you're exactly like I am. I mean, when I was handling divorces and I'd have people come in, I'd be like, yo, I'm like, I just need you to understand you're gonna survive this. You're a grown up. It's a relationship that failed. What I want you to remember
Mhm.
is that you got 3 kids that are here. They're gonna be taking the brunt of this. Do
Mhm.
me a favor if you can. If you can, act like a grown up and understand that what you're trying to do here is make it as soft as a landing as you can for your children instead of you two acting like 2 giant flaming douchebags and constantly arguing, grilling the kids for information. And it's like, dude, it's like every time I give that kind of speech, like every single time, and it just falls on deaf ears, man.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
those clients that don't do that are like unicorn clients. I'm like, I praise them. I'm like, oh my God, you're like you're the
Mhm.
divorce client I've been waiting for, like the
Yeah.
amicable, just they really can do joint parenting together. They're cool with one another. Oh yeah, you want to do something now? You want the kids? Hell yeah, bring them on out. Like it's so rare, dude.
Oh, and I do guardian ad litem where like here in Ohio, that's an attorney's job only.
Yeah,
And you get
same with Illinois.
yeah, and the court appoints you to like private custody cases and they pay up and then you do your job. And yeah,
Yep.
at first when you start, both of mom and dad are like, oh, we want to work with you. Then you start getting emails. Do you know this guy's he kills cats? And then he shakes the blood around and draws in the blood. And they're like, did you know that she's part of like a meth producing biker gang? And I'm like, oh, every time without fail.
Every time.
Every time.
Dude, so I want to ask you. So, like, Allie was gonna tinker. She took the GAL, like the CLE type shit
Hmm.
that she had to do. So she
Yeah.
got she got to the point where she could be appointed as a GAL, but she
Hmm.
never ended up doing it. I thought she would have been a phenomenal GAL. But
Yeah,
let
I
me
think she
ask
would
you,
too.
so do you ever do in-person visits or do you have them come to your office?
I do in-person visits because like a part of our training, they kind of recommend you should be able to say like, because they're gonna ask, is the house safe? Is it satisfactory? And
Yes.
I mean, I've done that, but I've also been in many houses where I'm like, oh, do you want to have a seat? I'm like, no, I just drove. Like I was, no, man, listen, I've been in the car for like an hour and a half. I've been driving all over the place. My knees are really sore. I kind of need to stretch out. And I'm just looking around like there ain't, I would rather sit on the ground than on the couch.
Right. No doubt. No,
So that
no doubt.
happens. That happens.
Well,
But I
because
try to, I
the reason
yeah.
I asked you that is, do you
Mhm.
do surprise visits or do you let them know you're coming?
I don't generally try to do a surprise because I'm like I'm not children's services,
Yeah.
and I mean it
But
if
how
the
do you
house is
find out if their shit's like legit or if they're like on
well,
they're always on their best behavior when the GAL
yeah.
comes.
I mean there's that, but I mean you could generally tell if there's problems or not. I think you can generally suss it out, and like if the house isn't safe, you can't wallpaper over everything if the looks like a bomb went off in it.
Yeah.
So you generally have a basic idea. And I've been able, for the most part, you could kind of like feel things out, especially in, like there's one county I'm in where I worked as an assistant prosecutor for a little while. Like I still have a lot of contacts in law enforcement. I can like, hey, do you know of any problems here? Do you know these people? Are there any problems? And I try to work, through other things I know to try to get a basic idea. If I thought it was necessary, I would, but I haven't really had that concern where I need to surprise somebody. I've never had that issue yet.
Man, it's like so I mean, did you watch any of that Zachary Hughes case, which was kind of crazy?
I saw like the clips of it on Twitter. I didn't have a chance to watch it.
I didn't really watch much of it either. I did watch obviously when I saw that he was testifying and he kind of
Hmm.
there was the verboten stuff that he wasn't supposed to talk about,
Yeah.
which was obviously all the shit that was going on with her and and then like I kind of went back and my buddy Jay was streaming. He's like, this trial is pretty interesting. I'm gonna go back and start from the beginning. And I happened in when the GAL was in there, and that was one of the things. It's like I knew in my divorce practice, like which GALs that I tried to avoid like the plague, because you'll just get GALs who are all here, same thing, all attorneys, but you'll get some that are mom's side, you'll get some that are dad's side, and you don't want that. Like you really just want a GAL to be on the up and up
Mm-hmm.
because the entire point of it is that your only job is to figure out what is in the best interest of the child.
Yes.
And you don't give a shit what's going on with them in terms of the divorce. You're trying to figure out when it comes to that parenting agreement
Mm-hmm.
and they're bickering about it, how you're going to suggest how it's going to be allocated. Like, so in your courts, like our judges here in Illinois, whatever the GAL says is exactly what happens. Like
Oh,
there's like, I mean, did the judges have discretion?
okay.
Yes, but they don't use it.
I mean, here it's going to be judge to judge or magistrate to magistrate, but for the most part, the magistrates, they're going to do what they think is necessary. Although I haven't had a magistrate kind of look at me and say, or a judge look at me and say, like, that's nice. And in the meantime, just move on. But I have as the attorney on mom's side or dad's side, or, trying to argue for something. I've been like, don't listen to this guy. They don't know what they're talking about. And
Right.
the court has done that before. They're like, yeah, we're not doing that. So at least I could say for myself so far, they haven't blown me off completely, but
Yeah, I mean, because it's a super uncomfortable thing where if you've
Mhm,
got a GAL, especially like in the smaller counties, like if I'm in Cook County where Chicago's situated,
mhm,
there's a million lawyers in there, there's a million GALs. Like when you're in the smaller kind of the counties, like in which where we practice, all the lawyers, all the judges,
mhm,
all the GALs,
mhm,
and it's like when I'm like in a massive battle, like a custody battle where they've just gotten the wrong impression of my client, like
mhm,
and I know it. Like it's like I've done enough work with this person where I'm like, this guy is not the shit bag that they're making him out to be. It's like, one of them came at him with an OP early on to get one of them out
mhm,
of the house. And it set an ugly precedent. Or there was a domestic that wasn't like a nightmare domestic. It was just hands that shouldn't have been put onto the other person, but it casts like the person in a bad light right from the get.
mhm.
And you're trying to climb that hill in terms of just saying, all right, look, I get it. Like, like my dude pled out on that domestic. He shouldn't have put his hands on her. This isn't like it, like, where did he beat her to death or, pummel her? It's like
Yeah,
clearly he should not have touched her at all. He acknowledges that. But like from the purposes of like the GAL, it's really tough to get some of them over that hump in terms of because that one little hiccup, they're looking at it like, all right, well, I mean, he put hands on her,
mhm,
and it like in perpetuity, that's going to concern me with the kids, which is a reasonable expectation for that GAL to have. But in
yeah,
terms of just kind of like, I've had it where I've had to go at a GAL really hard because I know
mhm,
they're getting it wrong. Like in terms of,
yeah,
and then like I had a case, I'm not going to name names, obviously, but I had a case whose the wife, her brother was in a highly publicized cop shooting case in Chicago, and he had shot and killed a kid, and he was one of the first cops in Chicago to get convicted on it.
mm,
So it's like she had that kind of thing in her background, and she started throwing all these accusations about like SA against my guy that my guy is like, dude, like I no, like I swear to God, you know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
knew, and it's like and the GAL was kind of giving it some credibility. He was buying it a little bit, and I
mhm,
kept telling it, and I would have like just meeting after meeting with this guy, just trying to say, hey man, like, and my guy did have an anger issue. Like he'd get really frustrated and
mhm,
upset because he would sense that the GAL wasn't believing him, which would only make him more upset.
yeah, that just amps up from there.
It does. So it was such a tough case, man. And it's like, but like that dude, I had to go like just his investigation sucked. Like he went, they had some crackerjack counselor that clearly had like bias towards mom in terms of what was going on, in terms of what was happening with the kids. It's like everything mom said to that counselor, she took as gospel, So, and it was like,
Mhm,
it was just, it's a really hard thing. And I guess the point is that, I don't want to have to go hard against a guy that I'm in court with all the time, calling him
mhm,
out on a shitty investigation because number one, I know he's going to be a GAL down the road. And
yeah,
I don't want him like harboring animus against me because I'm
mhm,
calling him out on what he didn't do and
sure.
he should have done. So it's a tough gig, I guess is my point. It really is
Yeah,
kind of can be a tough
it
gig.
is tough, and getting back, like you kind of mentioned that whole DV thing because not a lot of the GALs I in my area, a lot of them do, not a lot of them do criminal stuff. They mainly stay on the family court side. I think it's helpful for me to know because I'd be like, yeah, I've been there before. It's like, look, you're gonna have to play out. There ain't a whole lot we can do
Yeah.
because, like, you go in front of a jury and say, look, I really didn't do this. Nobody's gonna believe you, and we're
Right.
gonna get buried under the jail. So
Yeah.
here's the option. So,
Yeah.
I take that into consideration. I think that is important. But as far as, if I screw up or do something, I know people get worried about that, but I'm like, if I shit the bed, call me out. And I honestly, I know not all of attorneys look at it this way, but it's all in the game. Like, you're supposed to go at this hard. Like,
Right.
we might be buddies, but like in the courtroom, I'm looking I gotta win.
Yeah.
God, who's the um, Brian, like, oh, I was trying to think of it. Brian Bosworth, the football player, he had somebody who was like his arch nemesis. But it's like, you guys could like, and then after this, you guys could go golf afterwards. Like,
Right.
it's okay. You can do that. And I don't mind that. Because I've been in court for somebody's like, man, no hard feelings. And I'm like, I don't like this is how
Yeah,
it
but
works, man. We're
that's what
supposed to
makes you
go
a
at
good
it.
GAL though. You know what I mean? And
Well,
like kind of being able to own your shit
yeah.
like that just speaks volumes because it's like but like in terms of like criminal practice out where
Mhm.
you are at in Ohio, like how would you characterize the relationships between you and like prosecutors? Like is it pretty friendly or and a lot of that comes with
Mhm.
time, right?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you're practicing in the same county for years.
Yeah. Overall, I'd say for the most part, it's friendly. I mean, because like I'll go into downtown Cleveland, it's a little different because I really don't. I'm not as plugged in there as compared to
Yeah.
like out in some of the suburbs, and then if you go out into the rural areas, like I mean, I hop on my horse and I'm out in some places out there. Those are very different because it's very small town. Also, one of the offices I worked in, so I do have a relationship with some of the people there. So yeah, there it's overall pretty friendly. I mean, I've been, and probably at this point now, I've probably been in like 20 some counties in Ohio total
Yeah.
doing cases, throughout my time. And yeah, I really haven't had a problem. And with that said though, when I was a prosecutor or an assistant prosecutor, for example, I was always mindful of the idea that when you're defending people, a lot of people, this idea of like if you're friends with everybody, sometimes they think that's what they want out of an attorney. But I
Yeah.
also know there's times where they're sitting there saying, Jesus Christ, these guys are buddies. This is bad.
Right.
And like I'll just say, hey man, what's up? How you doing? If their
Right.
clients in the room. Like I try to like give that idea of like we are cordial, but
Right.
it's not like, hey, how's your kids doing? Or hey, heard your wife got in a car accident. She all right? All that kind of stuff. Like I save that for later, or
100%.
because that just looks bad. Y-
Always.
Yeah, and I understand it's tough because I'm seeing somebody I know. I gotta like we're talking and we're just doing our thing, and I think a lot of people they don't realize it as much as you guys sitting there, whether or not he's retained, appointed, in custody, out of custody. Most people think we're all in cahoots together anyway.
True
And
story,
it's,
man.
children's services cases. They all think the government steals your kids. And it's a hard enough time where when the children's services does enough hinky crap, I can't sit there and say, well, yeah, I mean, it looks like they're stealing your kids. I can't blame you right now.
Right.
And that's where I just think, especially as attorneys, on both sides, that people really need to be mindful about how they conduct themselves because, yeah, I'm glad that everybody can get along and we can be cordial, but like, there's something to be said when you're Alan Jackson and Hank Brennan. Like,
Right.
there's no question of there's no
They're not going out and having beers after
yeah, they're not
court.
going to stab each other in the elevator, but yeah, they're not going out and having beers.
Right. Yeah, dude, you know what? I mean, that is such a great point, and it's so true. Like
Mhm.
anytime you have a client, especially if you're talking about a PD who's in
Jeez,
that
I do
room,
so
who's
appreciate
in the same room with
Yeah.
that same prosecutor, like that dude, that client's always going to feel like this is a rigged system. Y'all are
Mhm.
working together. And yeah, that kind of familiarity with the opposite side is a really, really bad look. And it's
Mhm.
even worse in the sense when you're private counsel, and it's like that
Mhm.
thing. I think like when you've been in counties enough to where you've gotten established relationships and reputation in terms of what you do, You know, because like early on, Allison and I are both very aggressive lawyers. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not in there to make friends. I'm in there to win cases and to make sure that my clients are being, fairly represented by me and they're getting a fair trial and that, the cops didn't fuck them. Like those are the things that I'm most concerned about, not necessarily trying to make buddies with the prosecutor. And like usually the age gap is like a lot of the younger prosecutors are tough to kind of like talk to because they just don't have that life experience.
Oh
Because that
yeah,
part of
that's
that, dude, like, I mean, that
well,
part of
it's
our gig of trying to work out a plea and you're trying
yeah.
to humanize your client just falls on deaf
Well,
ears. It's
well,
hard.
yeah. Well, especially young prosecutors are like, well, I think it is just like, homie, you came out of law school as a prosecutor. Like,
Right.
you don't know what it's like out on the street. Like,
Right.
you don't know the world out there, man. This ain't how, like, give me
Right.
a break.
I
Like, come
know.
on.
I know, man.
I mean, but that happens a lot of places. So,
It does. I mean,
mhm,
where I'm at, like there's a feeder law school, like probably about 20 miles west that like a majority, it seems like a majority of the prosecutors come out of there
mhm,
fresh out of law school. They're going right into the prosecutor's office, couple years in misdemeanors, starting traffic court, work their way up to misdemeanors, and then they're in
mhm,
low felony shit.
yeah,
So it's like I'll see them and they're like 2 years into their career and they still don't know shit. I'm like, dude,
mhm,
you're 26. You don't know anything
yeah.
about the world yet, dude.
Well,
And it's tough.
even the ones who have been career, it's like, you know, even if it's all you've done is prosecuting, you've been there 25 years. Like, you understand a little more, like, not everything's the end of the world, but still at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think you should be allowed to be a prosecutor if you haven't done any sort of other work.
I agree.
Just understanding the rest of the legal world, even for a year or two,
I agree.
I think really would help give, now that said, there are times where I think you could probably say not a big deal. Like, one of the in Toledo, there was a guy, he was in the prosecutor's office there. He was a cop for like 15 years. And I'm like, you know what? I get it. He's gonna obviously probably be a little more pro law enforcement. He was very fair and he could appreciate how the world works. He understood like there's a little bit to this. But yeah, just
Right.
coming straight to law school and being a prosecutor, I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that being an option for
I
people.
mean, because it's like the two jobs are so different. It's
Mhm,
like when we're defense attorneys, we're dealing with the human being. Like
mhm,
we're dealing with a completely different element
yeah,
in terms of like we're actually having conversations with the accused. We're
mhm,
hearing from their family. It's a much different thing than a prosecutor is looking at a name on a piece of paper and a statute and a police report, and they're basing everything on that in every
mhm,
case. You know what I mean? So it's just
yeah,
there's vastly different things in terms of dealing with the humanity of what we're dealing with. It's like for them, it's
mhm,
just like it's lost on a lot of them, and
yeah,
it's a frustrating proposition.
yeah.
J Rock, thank you so
And
much for becoming a new member. Thank you so much for gifting out
thanks,
5 DD
J-Rock.
memberships. I'm assuming these are
Yeah.
your people, so
J-Rock is yes, yes, and
I already
yes.
love them. Maddie B, $5. I want to thank you for inviting us and our favorite foamer to your stream, Bob. My pleasure. I love
Do
having
you
you
know what a
guys.
foamer is?
I don't, but it sounds
A
disgusting.
foam No, it's not. It's not actually.
Okay. All right.
A foamer is um basically a person who's autistic and is very into trains.
Oh,
And people were saying, because we were talking about I think we were talking about like World War II airplanes or something like that. And I was just kind of we were just kind of I was just going and going and going. They're like, "Are you sure you're not a plane foamer?" I'm like, "No, I know what a foamer is." And I'm like, there's an example. You can go on YouTube and see them. They're like people that film trains and they're like, "Oh my God, it's the whatever." And they're super
yeah.
stoked. And everybody in my chat's like, "You knew what that was right away." So that's a little suspicious. And I'm like, I can't win for knowing things. I
So,
can't win for knowing
well, where
things.
does the term come from? Well, like, what is the
Because
foamer?
they're like foaming about it. I think it's something the railroad people started calling them. So it
Wow.
kind of bled out into public.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome, Maddie B. Appreciate the generosity. MB, thank you very much for the 5DD memberships. And Brandon Lesko, does anyone know how to get a stuck train out of a tunnel? The smoke is still working, so tough to see. Anyone? Wait, who's stuck? Is this a hypothetical or is this
I
actually
that
going
that
on?
brand that's I'm not sure what he's getting at there.
I think you do.
Yeah. um, but no, I mean, like, I will say this much, Bob, because I started out, um, when I was in law school, I kind of was a bit of a disadvantage because I don't know. I think I'm the only person in my family who's ever been an attorney, and in my immediate family, I know for sure. And from asking my parents, aunts, uncles, and my other relatives who still had mental faculties that can know everybody else, I think I'm the only one. So I really went into it blind, and
Yeah.
through law school, I wanted to be involved in the GoFundMe. We shut that down. We're not doing the GoFundMe.
Or there's your answer.
Yeah.
Alexa's Google search. Not.
Um, so I really, like, at the time I was like, I really want to do prosecution. Like, I think that's for me. And I interned and I was liking it. And then I did like a clinic where I did juvenile court, and they let me, they let you run wild. It's juvenile court. So I did like 3 months as a prosecutor, and I did 3 months with the PD's office. It was a lot of fun. And I got out of law school and there just wasn't jobs. So I started, working in the PD's office, and I started doing work, and I got a contract gig with them for a while. And, the neat part was in Toledo, you could do that and, run your own practice. So, and when you're by run your own practice, when you're starting out, meaning like hope people call you. And eventually that started
Right.
happening and working.
Right.
And then,
Right.
around 2018, I ended up, getting divorced, and I was like, I kind of need to get out of town. I've been here in this area for a while. I kind of like knew me, new place, new change of mind. I'm like, I'm gonna go work in a prosecutor's office. So I'm unshackled. I can go where I've been unburdened by what has been. So I took a job, and the office was great. I think it was a very good office. It was a really small one. We were five of us, including the elected. And he was a great boss. But I started, after I had been a defense attorney already for, 4 years now. So, you're sitting there and you're like, "Well, I want to plead this out." And the detective's like, "I don't like that." And you're like, "That's not your call. That's my job. Like, I don't want you to do that." I'm like, "Okay." And I did it the way I wanted to. And, somebody would complain. He'd complain to his boss, his supervisor, and it would get up. And eventually that, higher up, and I forget if it was in the sheriff's office or the PD, eventually got to my boss, and he's like, "Well, why are you ignoring him?" And I'm like, "Because I thought my job was to, like, make a command decision here. Like, you gave me cases and you said, a couple of them, he would give me, and he's like, I don't want you, especially at the beginning, he's like, don't go any lower than like whatever." And some of the more serious things, and I get that. But a lot of the stuff he's kind of like, yeah, resolve them.
Right.
And, how handle them how you want to handle them. And I'm like, okay, cool. But he's like, you can't make them mad. I'm like, but my job, I thought, is to kind of do what I thought was the right way of handling it.
Right.
And, dealing with that, I mean, and, that was kind of a thing. And, dealing with victims at times where that where it's like, I get on very serious crimes, like, yeah, there's not a whole lot of room to wiggle, but it's like the
Yeah.
guy stole your, somebody stole your car, Bob, and you call me and you're like, I want him dead. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. He's gonna get probation here, man. Like, he's gonna get the intervention program. He's gonna get diversion. Like, they're like, well, you need to oppose that. I'm like, there's nothing to oppose.
Right.
And, and like, I actually support this for him because the guy, this is his first time getting in trouble. He's like 35 years old.
Right.
He hurt his back 5 years ago on a job, and he's been doing heroin. Like, this is what we want. And that office, it was also very small. It was like rural. It
God,
was
I
like,
wish you would have stayed in the prosecutors. Like
yeah,
that's the kind of guy I'm always talking about, or gal or
yeah,
person that I'm always talking about. We need as prosecutors, somebody who
yeah,
actually kind of looks beyond the veil a little bit
yeah.
and tries to figure out like why the fuck
Well,
something went down.
and yeah, but I mean, also part of the issue was, and this was also a county of like 45,000 people. So it's very rural. It's where I grew up. It's an area like where I grew up, but I thought, oh, I could do that. I'm like, from starting out in a county with like 500,000 people, which is big for Ohio. I know we're not Chicago big, but it was like we had 10 felony judges. So it was like that was the big city for me. And I'm like, I think I can do this, but maybe I need to work in a bigger office because that area of Ohio where I was at was very rural. like they were charging people with internal possession cases, meaning like if you got a DUI and the highway patrol stopped you and they made you take a piss test because they thought you were intoxicated and you
Right.
pissed hot for cocaine, felony possession of cocaine along with your DUI. Now the Supreme Court in Ohio is like, yeah, most count, like when I interviewed at the next county, I was like, do you guys do that? And she's like, no, we have like real drug problems here.
Right.
But the Supreme Court of Ohio has since then been like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. But I went to this next one, and it's still an issue of, for me, I think it's hard when you're kind of like libertarianish to really work in the prosecutor's office, unless you're kind of given just the authority to do what you want. But in reality, no prosecutor can do that because,
Right.
their ass is on the line. So you'd have to be the prosecutor yourself, and you'd only be a one-term prosecutor, really.
Right. Exactly.
And
and therein lies the rub. Like
Yeah.
I'm constantly talking about that. I mean, it's a political position. I
Yeah.
mean, people like the elected prosecutor is a politician, make no bones about that. And that inherently creates the issue of things are no longer about the truth in cases. It's about getting convictions because they run on that platform, man.
So are
And
judges.
100%. And
Yeah,
it's the same shit. We're tough on crime.
Yeah, I'm gonna put guys in jail.
Right.
Not,
And all
I'm
the
gonna give people
underlings
a
are
fair
beholden
shot.
to that guy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like that's their, like, when they like, yeah, I gotta go talk to my boss about a deal that I'm trying to get him to get done. And I know what the answer is going to be. I'm like, I know your boss. Like, so I like, don't even bother. I'm like, so
Yeah.
you have no autonomy, and they don't.
Mhm.
Like, typically they have very little autonomy around us. And I'm talking about the younger attorneys that are under the head guy or head gal.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's a frustrating deal for
Yeah.
sure, man. It's brutal. So Jefferson C. Post says, thank you, number one, for your generosity, Jefferson. Would be nice if prosecutors had to learn the David side before being on the Goliath side. Maybe we'd see less aggressive rule bending.
Well, that's another thing.
I love that concept, man. I mean, I love that concept. And that goes to exactly what Sean was saying in terms of you should really have to do both sides of it. Like, you should never be a career prosecutor without having done any other part of the law. In particular, like I see a lot of guys that'll go from prosecutors into the defense side of it. You see very few go from the defense side into the prosecution side. I mean, it's not to say that it doesn't happen, because it does, but it's not nearly as frequent.
Yeah. No, I very much agree. But I will say, as far as like seeing the rule bending and things like that, I could say I'm very fortunate. I have not dealt with like Nick McClelland or a Hank Brennan or a Lally. I haven't had to deal with those guys, knock on wood. I mean, for the, like, as much as I don't trust the government, I don't trust the state, I haven't had to get to the point where I'm like, I know they're sorry. I got pretty far without swearing. I'm pretty impressed.
That was pretty good. I mean, I thought I gave you the high sign when I was dropping an F-bomb or two. So
okay. Well, no. I was just trying to keep it. It's your house. I'm in your house,
slip, man. I let him slip occasionally.
But like, I haven't really had a prosecutor where I'm sitting there thinking like, I know you're fucking hiding something. You've got to be hiding something. I generally have been able to trust for the most part, but that's when you see this, I think people should realize that. I guess moving on to all those things. I think these cases have been helpful to show people that,
Man,
you might find really good judges. Like I will say, the Michelle Trakunis trial. Did you guys follow that at all?
Yeah, I did.
That judge out there in Connecticut, I loved. They ran banker's hours. Like they only had 2 hours of trial every day, but I loved his rulings. I didn't agree with all of them, but he was very well reasoned. He, belted it out.
Agreed.
Another one I actually really liked lately was the ASAP Rocky trial.
Oh yeah,
the judge there was.
He was, and that was like dealing with some shit. Between Tacopina and what's it, Lewin, man.
Well, the Lewin thing really upset me because that was probably one of the most racist things I'd ever seen a prosecutor do, where he's like, sir, I need you to understand. No, I don't feel you. When he told that to 12E, I don't know if you watched the whole thing, but
I didn't.
So when Rocky's buddy came to testify, he's like, you feel me? He's like, sir, no, I need you to understand. I don't feel you. And it's like, he almost like, this was in the 70s. I'd been like, sir, we don't need the jive talk here.
Right.
And like, I could probably find the stuffiest white person in LA and they'd have been like, yeah, I don't think that was right to say.
Right.
I mean, we
100%.
watched the whole thing, and I I wanted to watch it for a specific reason. It wasn't a goddamn murder case.
Right.
And it's like in the middle of the Johnny Depp trial, there was the Mario Batali trial. And Mario Batali got accused of groping a woman. And that was televised. Like people need to see not everything is a murder.
Oh
Like
God, dude, you're so
everywhere in
right.
America, it's something else. And you guys need to see that because
And that's what most cases are. Like
yeah.
most cases are not murder cases and like what we
Mhm.
do. You know, dude, that's such a great point. Like I'm gonna adopt that. I'm gonna start like eyeballing shit that's not a murder so that I can actually
Yeah.
like, you know, like because that is it's like a real it's a breath of
Yeah.
fresh air, even though it's still a crime of some kind. It's
Yeah.
just it's not dealing with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good philosophy to have, man. Yeah, because and it really does kind of let people know it's like, you know, the streamers, the big streamers, the court TVs and law and crime always, you know, they pick up on these big homicide cases,
Mhm.
and that's really not an accurate picture of like what we really do in real life as defense attorneys or just in
Mhm.
the criminal justice system in total. I mean, those courtrooms are packed on a daily basis. You know, you're seeing courtrooms during jury week, you know, like I
Yeah.
don't know how they do it out by you. They pick
Yeah.
1 week a month, it's jury week, and every courtroom that
Yeah.
has cases that
Kind of.
they've
Yeah.
set, they're either going to go or they're not going to go.
Yeah.
But like every other day, those courtrooms are packed with like, you know, 50 to 100 people on the docket, just
Mhm.
burning through status calls. You know, where are you at on your
Yeah.
discovery? When we're going to, you know,
And
your motion deadlines,
yeah.
you know, all that stuff.
Well, and the other thing too is like we've done these cases where you see like these brilliant, beautiful courtrooms, and you see like just utter, and people like, oh my god, this is a shithole, and I'm like, buddy, that's every courtroom in America.
Right.
I did one recently, and it was an older case of a cop. He stopped a guy, and they got into a fight, and he ended up getting charged with police brutality. He ended up getting convicted, and then as we were watching it, the Supreme Court of Ohio had said, like, actually, yeah, they had screwed up his speedy trial rights, so the entire trial was a nullity. But it's one of the suburban Cleveland courts, and it's one I've been in front of before. And people are like, oh my God, is it really this disgusting? I'm like, this is like every court in America, guys. It's not this it's not this nice. Like you
Right.
got the peeling fake wood veneer, the
Right.
wallpaper's falling apart. Like,
Yeah. Carpet from like
yeah,
1963, you know, it's
people
just
have
dude,
sat on the benches for so long. There's like dirt and oil that have kind of like ground in spots. Like, yeah,
it's in the wood. It's
yeah,
become
that's
in
the
the
world,
wood.
man.
Oh, dude,
This is not the
100%.
good. This is not the good wife every
Dude,
day.
yeah, it is not the good wife. Like in Cook County for about a 3-year period,
Hmm.
when I would go visit my clients in the Cook County jail, they were
Hmm.
putting lawyers in the boiler room. So they were, like we were sitting in a room that had like 8 boilers in it and like a little
Hmm.
table and 2 plastic chairs, and they put the council tables about 6 feet apart. That was for like 3 years.
Oh,
So, dude, it was unbelievable.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so
That
Brandon Lesko, I'm surprised they let you keep that job after you let that crazy guy do that interview on Court TV. Would be a shame
ugh.
if more feet get snapped.
So, I when I worked at the PD's office, we had the Toledo toe sucker, and he
Oh my
was sucking
god.
on women's toes.
Oh my god.
And we were in the middle. We had done a pre-trial, and the guy was like batshit insane. And I'm not. And people are like, "Well, don't you
Really?
like?" Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, just because you have a foot thing doesn't mean you're crazy.
Wait, was he
Um,
breaking into women's
no, no,
houses?
no, 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 no. Even
Okay.
better, even better.
Okay.
So he walked up to a woman at the store and was like, "Hey, can you try these shoes on? I want to like, do you like, she worked there. Like, I'm thinking about getting them for my girlfriend." So she's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." She popped her shoes off, and he just like, hit the deck. He grabbed his
No
socks. Like that's
way.
how fast he got down, and
Oh
was
my
like,
god.
her toes. And he got up and said, "I'll be back later," and like gave her a kiss on the cheek. It's like, "I'll be back later." Store's closed, and he's like, I guess it's closing time. And she panicked and called 911.
Oh
They arrested
man.
him. He had done it to a woman walking down the street, and he
Cleveland
was
toe sucker.
yeah, he was facing these misdemeanor charges of sexual imposition. He was crazy. He thought he was like Don Juan. He thought he was this, he was a sexual tyrannosaur, to quote the great Jesse Ventura. And he ended up getting sent to the nut hut for a while. And he came
Yeah.
back, and he was like, by that point, he had fired me and said he didn't want me on the case. So the other PDs were working it too. We all had to take turns with this guy.
Yeah.
He went to
One of those
trial and he was still, he thought he
out
was
there.
the man.
Yeah.
Oh, he thought he was the ladies' man.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we had just had a pre-trial, and my intern is like, he comes up to me, he's like, he's out there talking to the news. And I look at the judge is like, you might want to go handle that. And it's in Toledo, the courtrooms are very, very little. So he heard everything. He's like, you should go take care of that. I'm like, thanks, Judge. And we kind of like walk down the hallway. And as I get there, and I'm just like, hey, please don't talk to the camera. Please don't talk to the press. And I look out the corner of my eye, and you could see me on camera do it. I see the red light on, and I'm just like, oh shit. And we're just like, can you please, can you come with us? And he basically tells us to go fuck ourselves. He's smart enough to handle himself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, well, I kind of just stood up to the camera while he's talking in case he says something really stupid and I have to jump in and like tackle him. And he does his thing, and and she's like, oh, well, thanks for sticking around. I'm like, oh, so what's gonna happen? There's like, oh, we're going, like, the station's like 2 minutes away from the courthouse. And I'm like, I go downstairs, I'm like, hey boss, funny story. We're probably gonna be on the news. He's like, really? What happened? And like, he was all totally like, he thought it was hilarious.
Oh my
so
God.
We fire up the computer, and it's one of these crappy computers we had in the PD's office. They only showed like 30 seconds of it. He's like, oh, it wasn't too bad. And I'm like, thank God. It's Friday. I'm driving home to go see my parents, and it's about an hour and a half drive. I'm like a half hour into the drive, and it's like 6 o'clock. And this is it's like 2017. And I'm sitting there, and my phone's sitting in the console on my car, and I hear it go bzz. And I kind of look for a second. I'm like, Facebook notification. I'm like, all right, whatever. And then bzz, bzz, bzz. And it just, after a while, it sounds like a machine gun.
Oh,
and
man.
I'm like, what the fuck? Did somebody die or something?
Right.
And then my mom calls, and I turn on the phone. She's like, oh my God, I saw you on TV. And she's like, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh no. And they played the full thing for like the 6 o'clock news.
Oh my God.
And oh God, it was so bad. Like, it was on Facebook. Everybody I ever knew, and this is before my Facebook got nuked. Everybody I ever knew saw it. It's like people I knew from high school everywhere saw it. And like my grandma, she's like, look at my son, my grandson, the lawyer. She's so proud of him. And I finally get back into town.
Handsome.
Yeah. And I get back into town, and like I walk into court, and they're like, well, great job on the news. How is it, Mr. Hollywood? And I'm like, thanks, guys. Oh yeah. And people found the interview. Like, they found the thing on, like, they found it on the internet still. And I'm just like,
hey man,
all right, we'll talk about it.
Listen, once it's on the internet, it never goes away.
I know.
Yeah, it's like the only things we obviously did a lot of press for that Garcia case that we handled in Nebraska, and God, dude, they hated us up there.
Yeah, I read up on that one when I first started seeing you guys. I was like, that's a pretty cool case.
And they desperately wanted Allison off that case because she was papering him to death. I mean, it was a death penalty case, so we were trying the hell out of it. I'm like, if you're gonna execute my client, you're going to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt, and I'm not going to make it easy. And they're like, in that particular case, I thought that they, it was their thought that they were going to get a local guy, and they were going to be able to kind of get that thing done. And we went in like all guns blazing. I made some kind of crazy statement early on that, this isn't my jurisdiction. Like, I don't have to be friendly with the judges.
I'm not coming back.
It's scorched earth. It's like I literally said the word scorched earth. And I mean, look, it's a death penalty case. Like,
you guys want to go all the way. We're gonna make you pay for it.
Exactly. You're gonna pay for it, and we're gonna do the work. So yeah, that was hellish. But like that one, I've had a hard time finding some of the clips. I could find some of them. I'm always looking for Allison ones. Some of the Allison clips are like,
and I'm not gonna lie, like, I wish at some point, I mean, I because people keep asking me, like, when are you going to court? And I'm like, if you find out I'm on a case because of the news, so be it. But I don't ever tell people when I'm going to court, where I'm going to court.
Right.
Because that's not fair to, my clients. They didn't ask to sign up for this. And it's one thing your record's out there, but for people to know about it, that's not fair.
Whole different thing.
But like, I know, I mean, there are times where I'm like, I wish I had something big and sexy like that. It's something huge. And if one day I'll probably get it, and then I'm going to regret it because of this freaking hell that I've built for
Right. Well,
myself.
and beyond that, it's a practice killer. It's
Yeah.
like that thing. And at that point, when we got that case, we had two young attorneys that were
Mhm.
working on, working at the firm. And it's like that took plus, I mean, with the travel, it's like when we got the call from the brother
Mhm.
who's downstate Illinois, and we had no idea that they were accusing him of killing four people. We're like, oh, I'm like, Allie, we got a murder case. And she's like, we drove down, we handled the
Mhm.
extradition. And then, we started talking to his parents and, the
Yeah.
brother. And like, so then we find out what he's alleged to have done. And we're like, wow, but we also know that it's in Nebraska, which as the crow flies, it's 6 hours straight across Iowa. Like, because we're not that far. We're far enough west from the city that
Yeah.
it's just like boom, it's like 6 hours, you're there.
Mhm.
So it was like between flying, and then we knew that we'd have to move there for the trial because it was going to be a lengthy trial.
Mhm.
So you're just away from your practice so much, and there's so much that you have to do in a
Mhm.
case like that because it spanned really 13 years in terms of when he was fired from Creighton, the pathology department, to
Mhm.
when he's arrested. 12 years elapsed. So you're
Yeah.
talking about like there was just the case had gone cold. So there was just a shit ton of work to do to where
And
you can't really take in new business, not like you would
yeah,
typically.
you can't handle your other business.
You can't. And in good conscience, you can't take new clients on because you're like, look, man, I'm not going to give your case the attention it needs because I've got this other thing
Mhm.
going on and it's eating up all of our time. And I owe that. I'm obligated to tell my clients that when they come in, as much as I want the money and need the money. So it's like, and you're getting your retainer, which is probably the biggest retainer we ever got on a criminal case. But it like when you meet out the hours on that thing, we probably made like $3 an hour.
Yeah, that's
We,
that
like,
and that's the thing. But
yeah,
it's
dude.
it's the but it I guess, and I know you say that, and I've heard other attorneys say that when they've had their big case, and I'm like, I know, but it's still the idea of like you're playing under
Yeah,
the lights,
yeah, it's true.
and it's, how good am well, you want to help somebody, but it's like, how good am I?
Right.
I guess part of it too. You want to go out and hunt a dragon, I guess.
Yeah, no question, man. No question. It's like, and that's exactly how we felt. And I had kind of the safety blanket, that being my father, because I had not tried a case with him until that point in time. And obviously with the Gacy background, I'm like,
Yeah.
as soon like before we even took it on, I told Allison, like we were eating in a restaurant in downstate Illinois. I'm like, go call my dad, see if he wants to come on board. I'm like, because I don't feel comfortable handling it without him, just in terms of the publicity side of it, because he knew what that was going to entail. And my
Oh yeah.
dad, was like he second chaired me, which was crazy.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah, I
concept
was
of
gonna
that
say,
was crazy.
and for my chat, if you're here, his dad defended John Wayne Gacy.
It's a true story.
So yeah, like
Trial
he's
trial
yeah.
attorney, not
Mhm.
some schmucky appellate guy that was just trying to get his
Mhm.
name attached to that case. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and that was like, and like that case haunted my father forever. Like in his career, in his mind, it's like he's like that. But like when I did the podcast, the first season of the podcast was obviously about the Gacy thing because he gave me all the tapes.
Mhm.
And and I sat down. I was real excited. It was really the first time I was expecting to be able to kind of get into the nuts and bolts because it was an insanity defense case, and that case in particular, I think, really shines a light on just how difficult it is to sell to a jury. Because if that guy's not crazy, a guy that was walking around in his house over a graveyard of 27 kids buried under his house as if there was nothing going on, having
Yeah.
huge 4th of July party. I mean, that dude was crazy as a shithouse rat.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
However, that's an eye for an eye situation. No one like you don't kill 33 kids and get away with it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing.
So it was like, but my father's opening statement in that case, like it as to the concept of trying to get a jury to understand what the insanity defense is was epic, man. Like epic. So like I
Mhm.
was all excited about doing the pod. I'm like, oh man, like this is gonna be great. And then my dad's like, I just don't really remember that much. And I'm like, what? What
Yeah.
are you talking about? I'm like seriously?
Like
All
asking
this
Tom Brady,
shit-
"Hey, how did the Super Bowl go?" I mean, like, I threw the football.
right?
It's like
We won. I
there's a
got a ring.
to that.
Yeah, exactly. All
Yeah.
right, so I want to
Um,
do a quick pivot over to speaking of Brennan and Alan Jackson. So Hank
yeah.
filed another thing today that I thought we'd take a look at.
Mhm.
Real quick, it's short.
Yeah.
It's not our like
Yes.
I know you and I are both readers and we go through lengthy
Mhm.
pleadings.
Yes.
Um,
The one
let's
thing I will say, and this is something if I'm Alan Jackson, 'cause something I've started doing really since I've been watching trials and seeing prosecutors caterwaul about a fair trial, and I've started doing it, and it's starting to pay off a little bit. I just like when we're talking, and it's like like we're entitled to a fair trial. I'm like, no, you ain't. There's only one side of the coin on the Sixth Amendment, brother.
I know, dude. It's like
And
it drives
there's
me
nothing
nuts.
wrong with saying that. I think it needs to be said.
It does. I say it all the time when we're watching it.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, because they're saying it all the time now. Like
Yeah.
they're saying it all. The state deserve the people deserve it. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Yeah. All right.
Hmm.
So he files this thing, and oddly enough, I had covered the Carney thing today.
Yeah.
His
Turtle
little
Boy. Yeah.
yeah, which is it's a really interesting First Amendment argument, and I know that you're another
Mhm.
constitutional guy, much like I am. I'm a big
Yeah.
constitutional guy. I think it matters quite a bit. I think it's pretty important to us as a country. So this particular thing, we'll just go through it real quick. So he's motioning for records from docket 282 CR 0043 and 2382 CR
Hmm.
00313 and Special Assistant District Attorney Robert Cosgrove. So he's another guy, another DA over at Norfolk, and he is asking him to
Which
produce
I think is weird. If he's a special prosecutor, like, hey man, give me his stuff. We're on the same team. Like,
right,
I don't
right,
understand. It's interesting. He's making sure people have it when he's like, well, I don't know what Lieutenant Proctor has. He's just by golly.
right, 100%. So he's
Yeah.
sitting here. What he wants are the cell phone extraction reports and
Hmm.
all underlying data from the two phones, search pursuant to search warrant, and then number as outlined in 15 and
Yeah.
16 Commonwealth v. Aiden Kearney or Carney. Sorry, I always call him
Yeah.
Kearney because it's how it reads to me.
Yes.
So in support of motion, on June 9, 2022, the defendant was indicted by a Norfolk grand jury for second-degree murder in
Yeah.
violation of GL, and manslaughter while operating under the influence, and then leaving the scene of the personal injury death in violation of
Hmm.
GLC 90. So the trial goes. That's what they're charged. Mistrial,
Hmm.
jury deadlocked. So the records are evidentiary and relevant. The Commonwealth intends to file a motion in limine to admit phone records, documents, witness testimonies, and other information demonstrating intimidation of witnesses as consciousness of guilt evidence. So essentially, what he's trying to get are the text
Yeah.
messages between Carney and Reed.
Yes, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Destroying cell phones or breaking a cell phone in half and throwing it away in a dumpster on a military base, and throwing your SIM card away somewhere else, or destroying your phones the day before a subpoena's coming. Normally I'd argue that's consciousness of guilt as well. But I'm just according to other people out there, I'm a penny lawyer. So
Yeah, yeah. So he said, yeah, dude, for real. So he says that the Commonwealth's opposition defend
mhm,
motion to suppress and restrain any searching of the computer telecommunication devices for unreasonable delay, filed by SA District Attorney Cosgrove and Carney, sets forth the
yeah.
relevance contained in the two cell phones belonging to Carney that were seized pursuant to a search warrant. So, I mean, like, what do you think of this thing? Like,
I
do
mean,
you
they think there's going to be something there. They think there's going to be conspiracy to do stuff. I think they're going to try to show like 404B evidence about Karen that she plotted to go after people. I think it's not like they're piercing the journalistic privilege here. At first this whole Karen Reed thing, because I had encountered Turtle Boy in another pond of stupidity on the internet.
Mhm.
I had heard all this and I was like, oh, screw this. It's got Turtle Boy involved. I'm like, people kept saying, look at it, look at it, look at it. I'm like, no, because Turtle Boy, like I had seen what he had done on something else. And I was like, yeah, I ain't getting involved.
Right.
And, this is like, I will say in this situation, though, he's totally legit. I may not agree with how he handled,
Right. I mean, that's the
things
thing.
there, but it's within journalistic, you know, like I think he probably could have done differently, and I would have advised him differently. But yeah, this is nonsense.
Dude, and
This
it's
is
like
so garbage.
it's like a complete fishing expedition. Number one, and number
Yeah,
two, because the same thing. Like I've kind of like I've covered Reed. I've steered
yeah,
clear of Turtle Boy and Aiden shit just because of how he is, and which, like, I mean, that's him, like, and that's cool,
yeah.
I mean, that's how he does his shit, but in terms of like when it got to the point where they're exercising their power in terms of the
Hmm.
state in order to shut somebody up, and
Yeah.
then they're gonna weaponize a statute
Hmm.
in order to help facilitate that. I've got a real problem with it.
Yeah. And I will say I listened to because I was driving around today, I had to listen to Melanie Little. She was showing the Turtle Boy hearing where the prosecutor's like, well, don't let him defame people. And I will say Bedro and his other attorney were very nice, but I would have been like, who the fuck put the nickel in you
Right.
to say like, oh, don't defame. Like, are we gonna have a defamation trial for a bond hearing?
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
like they let it go, and I think the judge must have looked like, yeah, I ain't doing that. But I would have at least said on the record, like these people need to, like these prosecutors need to be buck broken once in a while, and like it needs to be called out. Like, yeah, you can't do this.
Dude, I
So
I mean, like, seriously, and
this, I'll
so
tell you this much though, Hank Brennan, the reason why they hired better experts and they've loaded up, they're not doing that out of confidence.
no,
That
100%,
they're upping their game. Kieran Reed
100%.
hasn't changed your game at all.
Right, and you can be certain that he's not gonna do the rebuttal case that, Lally did. Like, he's not
Well,
he's not gonna try to, like, take the wind out of the sails of the defense's case
n-
by
n-
putting all those witnesses on first. I can guarantee you that. That's
I
not
he
happening.
might, but I will say Brennan seems like a better
Do you
storyteller than
wanna make a
Lally, so I'll
gentleman's
leave him.
bet? I bet that there's no way he does it.
You think he just comes out swinging with what Kieran Reed did?
Yeah, he's gonna try to get the conviction. I just like my thing with
Mm,
the whole conspiracy thing is it's so hard to sell to 12 people.
yeah.
And when if Yannetti's gonna go in with his
Hmm.
opening statement and lean into the mic and say, is his first words, Karen Reed was framed. Like you are
Yeah.
then you're effectively shifting the burden from
Hmm.
the state to the defense in the minds of the jurors, because you
Yeah.
know what they're going to be waiting for the
The
entire
frame job.
trial is the frame job, and,
Yeah.
and I just think
And
they're not
no,
going to
no,
come
no,
up
I
with
agree
more
with that.
shit.
I don't think they have to do that this time. They can say, because they've got everybody who's testified, it's all fair game. They can bring all those people back in. I think they can go a better route of like, this just stinks to high heaven.
I hope so.
And there's just like, you can go down that road, put Jim McKay back up there. She's like got her like, I'm gonna bite your wiener off look. And all
Right.
these people who've done everything, just that was the thing. Lally didn't do a very, like, as much as kind of getting ahead of the defense, there was a lot of things he didn't do though. And he just let them ask stuff and he didn't really get out in front of it, like destroying the phones, all those things where I'm like, if I had a witness and I knew that was like a really bad thing, I would have drawn that out. But instead, he
100
just sits there like a bump on a log. And then, Alan Jackson goes up there. It's like, you destroyed a phone and broke it and threw it away and dumped the SIM card. Like,
Dude,
that's what drug dealers do.
that is exactly what drug dealers do.
Yeah.
Burner, crack.
Yeah. Well,
one.
yeah. Snapping it and shredding it. Like, but I'm just saying there are so many, but I will agree. This is probably going to be a lot better trial. Like, I was not impressed by Lally. Like, he made it so horrible to
It's
get through.
terrible.
Yeah.
But I will have to say that my objections, my Lally objections were
Mhm.
legendary. Like I had his mimic shit.
Yeah.
It was like objection. It was
Yeah.
like that's
Oh
what he
God.
dude.
That's
Like
good.
it was good. Yeah. So it was. Yeah, I agree, man. Like I'd like to see it. Like I just get the sense that they are obsessed. They being the defense with exonerating her.
Yeah.
And
You just gotta get the win.
gotta get the win, man.
And honestly, I think they can get one. They can get another one at least. And
I
just,
agree.
but it just doesn't add up. And that's the thing. I think that, the idea of like mediocre, like we're finding, like people are finding out, like just like any job in life, a lot of people are just kind of meh or suck at it. Judges are no different. Judge Bev is not a good judge. But we're also finding out like a suburban Boston police department. So we're not talking about like a bunch of yokels out in Hee Hawville. Like a place where all the cops probably make $100,000 a year.
Right.
Like their idea of collecting, like anybody in this chat would have done a crime scene better than them.
Right.
You know, like we would use like bags and we would like, I'm just going to use the cups.
I'm pretty sure I would have used the red Solo cups and you know, the leaf blower. Those were two things I probably would have done.
The leaf blower is a good idea. The leaf blower is a good idea, but the cup, I wouldn't have done that. I'm like, we have an evidence collection kit. Like, go get it.
Right. Where did they get the cups? I forget. Like
they got it from one of the neighbors who was also a fellow police officer.
Right.
And he gave him the bag. And it's like,
you know what it's like? You remember that movie with Stallone, Copland? Like
yes,
where they
is.
all lived over in Jersey. That's exactly
well, like Richard Allen's no different. You know, it's these ideas of like, you'd think like they go to these conferences and the FBI teaches them how to do investigations and stuff. And they've learned and they go to all this crap and they're certified by like the National Association of Police Chiefs or the, blah, 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 blah. And then they're just bumbling around like this has never been done before.
Right.
Whereas like for attorneys, we go to like CLEs and they're like, don't do what this guy did.
Right.
And judges, they have a don't do what this judge did.
Yeah. They're now the textbook of what not to do.
Yeah. Well, before we go, somebody mentioned it too. Another case that I actually been following a lot is the Mickey Steins, the sheriff in Kentucky.
Oh, I love that case, dude.
I will say
do that one together. We should do
that'd be great. We could.
That's like,
yeah.
So I just saw that they're going insanity defense on it.
Yeah, I saw that today too. Did you see the prelim?
I did.
Yeah, I can't believe they showed that video.
I know, dude. I know. And they put a little more of it out. Like it's like you've got a much clearer picture of what was going on. And then somebody had it out, like some of the what preceded that. It looked like that there was a meeting in a different part of the chambers where you had the judge and like 3 or 4 different cops in there.
And there was
there
was like the Kiwanis meeting earlier that day too. And
dude, there's something going on with that case, man.
Well, I mean, it looks like and the funny thing is people are like, this is like straight out of Justified. And I'm like, to be fair, it's like the next county over from Harlan County, Kentucky. And
exactly.
And at the beginning, if you've listened to like him getting transported, he sounds like he's losing his mind. He's like, oh, guys, you're gonna kill me. And I'm like, you sound like you know how this goes, Sheriff. He's like, because they're driving through the holler and he's like, don't do me like this, man.
I'm like, dude, I'm telling you that, I'm all about that case. That's when I got my eyes on. Like, I'm actually contemplating flying out for a week of the Lori Vallow thing because I have to see her defending herself in person. I just have to see it.
Yeah. When is that happening?
Dude, like soon.
Yeah, I know I need to go. I want to show her hearing because I know the hearing she had done was pro se. I'm pretty sure that was televised, but I know the court's not allowing anything. So
yeah, it's like I'm going to see what the lay of the land is with that thing. But man, she's just like, because Allie and I covered that case like straight up podcast style back like in her first trial when they didn't stream it. But they would release the sound every day at 6 o'clock. So like Allison was listening at like 2.5. We'd go through, we'd pick out all the best parts of the testimony, and then we go record the podcast and we do like just the concept of that. It was like this weird amalgamation of like, like the First Amendment with the right to religion and insanity, and they didn't have the insanity defense out there, and she wouldn't have let him employ it anyway, and just like her religious beliefs, and there was this weird carve out where you could attack the mens rea, so it was like, dude, that whole thing had us
and that is the one cool thing, and I've tried to explain to people, every state is so different in what you can do and what you can't do. And it's that makes it even cooler. Just learning about everything you could do in every state. And I just think that's so amazing. Like the way you can the way you could do stuff out there. And like some states don't have an insanity defense. And like trying to explain to people here in Ohio, you can only be indicted through the grand jury. Like we don't allow informations unless you consent to an information. So if the grand jury never indicts you, that's it.
That's it.
Just like every state has a thing.
Dude,
We're also
all of
the
them.
only state that has statutory dower rights still.
Really?
I learned that when I did oil work. I did oil work for about a year. I took a job, right out of law school. They're like, "Here, we'll just pay you." I don't know anything about natural resources. Like nobody does. Just come down.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we like knowing the land all the way back to like the 1830s, and learning like, oh, Ohio still has dower, and we're like the only state that still has it, and that's why in Ohio, like in deeds, you have to like quit claim your dower rights in the land. It's like it's
That
interesting.
that's crazy. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
just watched Landman, which I highly recommend if you haven't
I
watched
was
it
gonna
yet.
say I might. It's a little different because out here in the fracking fields, we don't have natural resource law because like Ohio's like we don't have like centuries of doing it. It's like it's only like 15 years old at this point. So
Yeah,
it's the Wild West still.
that shit's amazing. All right, dude, I gotta
Yeah.
run. I got a
All
different
right.
dude that I like. I
Yeah. Oh,
love
I know.
this.
I know, Steve.
Yeah, so and you're more than welcome. Hang with us over there, dude.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
actually, I got to get ready for my show. I got my 9:30 show coming up, my weekly show. So we got a lot getting ready for
You're
that.
amazing, dude. I want to make this a regular thing. I love just like it, not with us covering anything, just shooting the shit. So
Yeah. No, I had a fun time, Bob.
yeah, me too. And invite me over to your neighborhood.
I
Open
definitely
hand.
will be doing that coming up.
All right, brother. Dude, I appreciate you so much. It was great. For all of you guys coming over from Sean's channel, thank you so much for your generosity. I really, really appreciate it. And Sean, I think you're fucking awesome, dude. So let's
Thanks,
let's
Bob.
hang. Let's
That
hang
was
a lot
great.
more.
Tell
And
Ellie I said
everybody
happy
that has
birthday, by
not,
the way.
I will. And everybody who is not subbed from my people, sub over to Sean's show right now. They just dropped
Yeah.
it in the chat again. I know they've been running in the chat. We're very good about dropping your links in. So, and I'm going to
Thank
check.
you.
I'm going to see what Sean's numbers were prior to the live. And you guys know we always go and check because otherwise I feel embarrassed because I only bring awesome people on, and Sean is exactly that. Dude, you're awesome. I appreciate
All
you
right.
always. And let's hang again really,
All right.
really soon.
Thanks, Bob. See you
All right.
guys.
All right, brother. Bye. All right, y'all. I'm heading over to PB. I've kept Steve waiting. I'm sure he's been patiently. I told him to fire it up. I love Sean. He's amazing. If you guys have not met him, now you know. He's great over there. Has a really great channel. He's really smart, really funny, as you can tell. So all those things come out like immediately as soon as you start talking to him. It is called what is Sean's show? It is called Potentially Criminal. That is his show. The link is getting dumped in right here. For all of you guys, I love you. Mods, I love you so, so much. Thank you so much for everything that you've done today and everything you do every day. We are portaling you. So you're going to come and hang with me over at Steve's. We'll love to see you over there. So I'm heading now. You don't have to do anything. You'll automatically get shifted, redirected right over there. Again, all you potentially criminal folks, thanks for coming in, hanging. Give us a sub if you like us. We hope to see you here. We have a great chat, and we'll see you later. Because without you guys, I'm just an old man heading over to Steve's spot.